So now we're ready to move on to a new subject. Stacy Vogeltowns is going to talk about a long-term care issue.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. What I'm going to talk about is kind of walk you through the process of what might need to happen from the beginning of getting a diagnosis or realizing you have diminished capacity through actually moving into a long-term care facility. Okay, so when might you contact us when we're talking about this issue? So maybe you just came back from the doctor and your husband got a diagnosis of dementia or early onset Alzheimer's. So you just got this diagnosis. You haven't really noticed problems, but you're worried. You want to know what should be done at this point before it gets too late, before the incapacity gets too bad. Maybe there's not a formal diagnosis, but your family members have noticed that, maybe you've got adult children and you notice mom is having some trouble. She's having trouble just getting around her house, getting up and down the stairs. She's having trouble remembering to pay the bills on time. And so you're concerned that, you're going to get her to the doctor, but right now you're just concerned about her handling the finances on her own. Or maybe you realize yourself that you could use a little bit of help. Maybe, you've laughed it off as senior moments, but those senior moments are coming more and more frequently. And you think that, it might be a good idea at this point to get some help managing your finances. So we're talking right now just kind of at those beginning stages. No one is fully incapacitated, but we realize that there could be an issue down the road, whether it's, 6 months from now or 3 years from now. We don't know how it's going to progress, but we want to make sure we're prepared. So what could our office help with at this point? Why do we want you to call our office, set up an appointment, get in to talk about things? The main reason is going to be that we want to make sure that your agents, trustees, personal representatives are the right people for you. So what we might end up doing is appointing a co-trustee to serve with you. What we might end up doing is removing the person who has the diminished capacity. What we might do is have that person resign as trustee. So just a couple examples of how this might work. So, mom is her own trustee at this point. Maybe dad died a few years ago and mom is managing the trust herself, but it would be nice at this point if we could take her adult son and bump him up as a co-trustee so that mom doesn't have to do it alone. There's someone there to help her. So that's one way it might work. Maybe we've got a husband and wife, and husband has that dementia diagnosis, and he realizes it, and he doesn't want to cause any problems. So he's willing to resign as trustee of his own trust, and wife is just going to serve alone as the trustee because she's still sharp as a tack. So that's another way we might do it. And unfortunately, maybe we've got a situation where somebody has diminished capacity, but they don't realize it. So maybe we've got, husband and wife, and husband is, going online and ordering things, and he doesn't remember doing it. He doesn't remember where he's given that credit card number out to, but he doesn't think there's a problem. Unfortunately, in that situation, what we might have to do is get a doctor to determine that he's incapacitated at this point, and he should not have access to that credit card. He should not be serving under the trust or as power of attorney. So those are just different options, different ways that we might have to go about updating your documents when we get that diminished capacity setting in. Other than updating your agents and your trustees, we also want to make sure that all of your estate planning documents are up to date and they say what you want them to. So if you've been toying around with the idea of, maybe adding the grandchildren in as beneficiaries under your trust, you want to make sure that college is paid for them. Or you wanted to leave a gift to your church, you want to make a donation after you pass away. Now would be the time to actually update your trust or update your will and get those terms in there. Because if you get to the point where you are fully incapacitated, you can't change your documents, you can't amend your documents. So at this point, you would really want to make sure that your documents are the way you want them to be. Another thing that we would do on our end is we would make sure that your documents are up to date and not out of date. So that might be some of tax planning, some of what Mark talked about. It might just be that you had your documents set up 10, 15, 20 years ago, and we're doing things a little bit differently right now. The tax laws are a little bit different right now, and so you'd benefit from getting the documents updated. It could also be that the power of attorneys are just a little bit older, and we want to see those updated. So that the documents don't go bad, they don't actually get out of date from a legal standpoint. But what we see more and more often in our office is that the banks think that they go bad. So even though your power of attorney document is fully valid, the bank might call us up or tell you to have an attorney sign off on it saying that it's still valid. And so sometimes we've just been updating those power of attorney documents as a matter of practice if they are 10, 15 years old, just to avoid that down the road when we're also dealing with diminished capacity or other issues. Let's just get those updated while we've got you in the office. And then we also want to make sure that your documents have all of the tools in them that we need if down the road we're going to be worried about having to pay for long-term care in a facility, and we want to eventually get you qualified for Medicaid. We want to make sure all the right terms are in your documents to make sure that we can do that for you. So that's kind of the first step when we realize something might be going wrong. And then the next step would be, what if we're actually ready to start looking for help? So maybe now we are a year or two down the road after that diagnosis, and we've got to learn a little bit about this process and what options are out there. So I will start by telling you it's kind of a cumbersome, hard process to navigate. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that you don't know until you start looking into it. So when it comes to looking for a long-term care facility, you're going to see there are a lot of different types. There are assisted living facilities, there are CBRFs, there are memory care units, there are skilled nursing facilities, there's care at home. So there's a lot of different long-term care facilities. It's not just a nursing home like it used to be 20 years ago. So there are a lot of different options out there. So just learning what those options are can be kind of overwhelming. And then learning how to pay for those options. So those options might range somewhere from, $5,000 to $6,000 for an assisted living up to over $12,000 for a skilled nursing home. So when you start looking into this and you realize how much it's going to cost, that's when we get the question of, how do we pay for this? How do we protect assets? And that's where the Medicaid conversation comes up. So this is another place where you see a lot of different terms. Medicaid and Medicare are different terms, and only Medicaid is the program that will pay for your long-term care. And then even further, to complicate things even more, they call Medicaid by a bunch of different names. So it might be called Medicaid, it might be called Title 19, it might be called family care, it might be called community waivers. So you might be going to a facility asking them if they take Medicaid, and they say, no, we take community waivers. And so you think they don't take Medicaid because they've told you something different, but they all basically mean the same thing. So there's a lot of terms out there. You also have to be aware of programs that might be able to help before you're ready to move into a facility. So there are definitely in-home services that can help. So maybe you just need somebody to come in a few times a week. Maybe we still have husband and wife together at home, and we just need somebody to come in and help out when the wife needs to go out and run errands and do grocery shopping. You can get somebody to just come in for a few hours like that. There are also day programs that are available for these individuals. So I don't like this term, but they call them adult daycares. So if you had to, you had to get somebody with care because they couldn't be left alone, and you're going to be gone every Friday because that's when you do your shopping and you volunteer or things like that. There are day programs where that individual could go just for the day, but they don't have to move out of the house permanently. There are also programs available through the county that can offer respite care. So if you've been caring for your husband for the last 2 years at home and you just need a break, or you want to go out of town for a couple days to visit family, and you don't know how you're going to be able to do that with your husband with diminished capacity, there are programs available through the county that will help with that. They can have someone come and stay in your home for a couple days. They can have you take your loved one to a memory care, not permanently, but just for a few days while you're out of home. So there are programs like that available through the county. Now, if you're to the point where, we're not just looking into it anymore, but we're ready, where we really do need to find a facility. We just can't care for our family member at home anymore. We have to start looking for a facility. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna look for them? So first of all, we need to determine what kind of facility we need. Again, assisted living, community-based residential facility, that's the CBRF, memory care, skilled nursing, all different levels of care. And you're probably not gonna know what level you need. So someone at the facility might be able to help you with that. Doctor might be able to help you with that. The county might actually be able to do an evaluation and help you with that. And then there are also private professional organizations who can help with that. So figuring out where we need to go to get help. And then once we've looked at a facility, or we're ready to tour a facility, we wanna make sure it's a good fit. Sometimes there are waiting lists. So you might find a place that you really like, but there's a 6-month waiting list before we can actually get our spouse in. Sometimes we find a place we like, but they don't take Medicaid. We're kind of wary of those places if there is a chance that we could run out of money. The worst thing that could happen is you're in a facility that doesn't take Medicaid, you're there for 3 or 4 years, and now the money has run out. At that point, they kick you out. You have to go find a new facility. So we really do look for facilities that will eventually take Medicaid. You wanna know if, when you are able to get on Medicaid, are they gonna make you switch to a smaller room or a shared room? So that's good to know ahead of time. And what's really nice is after you go on Medicaid, usually the facility will let you keep your room as long as you're willing to pay the difference out of pocket. So that's something to discuss ahead of time so you know what to expect. So once you've picked a facility, they're gonna have you complete an application for that facility. They do ask for a lot of information. It's mostly with regard to family members, your emergency contact. They're gonna ask a little bit about your medical situation. They might ask you to do a HIPAA release so they can get your medical records, make sure that they can take care of you in the facility. And then they're always gonna ask for the financial information as well. They wanna make sure that you can actually pay for staying there. Most facilities in the area want about 2 years of private pay before you go on to Medicaid. So when we're asking them, do you take Medicaid? They'll say yes, but after you've been here for 2 years. Some are 1 year, some are 3 years. So it's always a little bit different, but I'd say 2 years on average. So we want to make sure that we're giving them that financial information so that they understand and they know that you're going to be able to pay for the services. So you go ahead and apply, and then once you're ready to sign the contract, we do recommend that you have our office review that contract first. So it would either be myself or Mark who would review the contract for the facility. And what we're looking for in there is if they have any kind of unusual terms or conditions where they won't let us apply for Medicaid, they won't let us do Medicaid planning. Maybe they have some language in there about having the kids guarantee that they're gonna pay if mom runs out of money. So those are the kind of things that we're looking out for, and we'll let you know if we find anything unusual in the contract. Now, this process can be very overwhelming, especially when you realize how many facilities there are in our area, just in Southeast Wisconsin. There's so many to choose from. You don't know which ones are good, which ones are bad, other than maybe you've heard from family or friends, and they change ownership every couple of years. So even if somebody was there a few years ago and it was a great place, it might be under new ownership now and not such a great place. So it can be a very overwhelming process. So we recommend that you work with an organization to help you through this process. It's not something that our office would be able to help with. We can help with, telling you what to look for, and we can help with the financial side, but actually going and touring facilities and asking the right questions, you're gonna wanna work with somebody else to do that. I have a couple places listed up there, and they all work a little bit differently. So for example, you've maybe heard of A Place for Mom. It's an organization where when you contact them, they will try and help put you in contact with a facility that has openings that would be a good fit for mom. But they don't get real involved. And from what I understand is, you call them up and they maybe give you a list of 2 or 3 places that they'd like you to go and look at and tour on your own, and then you pick one. So that's kind of the bare minimum that they can do. The place that we work with most often is called Oasis Senior Advisors, and they are much more hands-on. They will actually make the appointments for you. They will go along with you to tour the facilities. They will actually ask the right questions for you. So not all of these professional organizations are created equally. And so, how much help you get depends on which one you go with. As far as how these professional organizations get paid, most of them will not charge you anything. They are instead paid by the facility. So if you tour 3 different facilities and you choose facility number 2 for your husband, that facility will pay a fee to this organization that helped place you with them. There are some of them that charge by the hour, but most of them it is free for you to use these services. And I will say, just before I forget, if anybody is kind of in this situation, could use some help at the moment, there are pamphlets for Oasis Senior Advisors on the table when you leave. So if this is relevant right now, don't forget to pick one of those up. So you found a facility, you had help finding the facility, and now what? So let's say, I've got an example up here. We've got mom who had to move into assisted living. Okay, so we went through the whole process. We updated her power of attorneys, her trust. We worked with Oasis and we found a really good fit for her. She sold her house and she moved into the assisted living, and the assisted living's costing her $5,800 a month. And when we toured the facility, they said, yes, we take Medicaid after 2 years have passed. Okay, so now we know that's our requirement. We have to pay for 2 years, and after 2 years, mom can go on Medicaid. So at this point, you want to get back in contact with our office because we want to make sure that when that 2 years is up, we can actually get mom on Medicaid. She has to qualify for Medicaid. So again, that's something that our office can help with. So I've got a little example of how this would work. So mom moves into assisted living costing $5,800 a month. She gets $2,200 a month in Social Security and pension. She's got $200,000 in the bank from selling her house and $100,000 in her IRA. So she's got $300,000 total, but she's $3,600 a month short for paying for her assisted living. So how can we make sure that we can protect some of her money, but also meet that 2-year requirement that the assisted living has? What we would do is we would take, of that $300,000, we can take about $214,000 and we gift it to the family. So it has to move out of mom's name in some way. It either goes into a bank account in her children's name, or maybe we set up an irrevocable trust. But that money has to move out of mom's name. And that is our reserve fund in case mom needs anything above and beyond what Medicaid covers. That's the reserve fund for mom for the rest of her life. And then after she passes away, that's the inheritance for the kids. And then we have to take the rest of her money, so that's about $86,000, and we're going to move that money into a Medicaid compliant annuity. So again, we're trying to qualify for Medicaid after the 2 years have passed. So what that annuity will do is it will pay mom $3,600 a month. That, combined with her Social Security and pension, is going to be enough to cover her assisted living bill each month. That annuity is going to pay her by direct depositing it into her checking every month for 2 years. After 2 years, all the money is gone, right? We moved $214,000 into the kid's name. The rest of it went into this annuity that paid her monthly. So all the money is gone after 2 years. She's met her 2-year private pay requirement, and she can now go on Medicaid. And that's how we do it.